Hello friends, it's Editing Ivy here. I just wanted to say that this video is in collaboration with Sophie, the Midwest Magician, and Justin, the Witch of Enchantment. We are all going to be posting videos about working with our house spirits. My video is more going to be focused on a how-to, all the different ways that you can do that. Sophie and Justin's videos are going to be more focused on actually seeing it in action, watching someone working with their house spirit, the struggles that may come up along the way, some personal gnosis and insights and such. So I definitely recommend you go watch their videos as well. I'll have both of their videos linked in the description box below. Hello everyone, today I want to talk about all the different ways that you can work with your house spirit, particularly with the dark months coming up. Here in the Northern Hemisphere, we're about to go into the winter season, and so this is a perfect time to stay indoors and to really get connected to your house spirit, especially if you haven't done it before. So if you're interested in a little bit of simple, practical magic, this video is for you. First of all, what is a house spirit? I want to differentiate house spirits versus the house spirit, which is what we're going to be talking about in this video. So across a lot of different cultures, over time and space, there has been a lot of mythology and folklore about house spirits that can inhabit the home that you are also inhabiting. And these little house spirits, such as brownies or other little fae-like creatures, are not what I'm going to be talking about in this video. What I mean when I say house spirit, I'm talking about the house itself, not necessarily other smaller spirits that inhabit it, but there is this idea that your house is a sentient being and that the house itself is a spirit, one that you can actually work with and work on improving a relationship. And there's a lot of benefits to working with your house spirit, which we'll get into momentarily. And some people believe that the house spirit is not only sentient, but it has its own emotions and even its own personality. And so part of working with your house spirit is learning its personality. And there's many reasons why you want to work with a house spirit, but I want to talk about my own personal gnosis in this video. There are places that I've lived in the past, especially as a renter, where I wasn't connected to the house spirit at all, and it always felt like something was breaking. I mean, yes, I could logically explain that away and say it was old equipment, it was bad building, whatever it happened to be, but there were certain houses that I lived in where it was just a slew of bad luck. Not only were things breaking all the time, but I was getting locked out of the house constantly, and there were arguments and fights, and it was just an unpleasant atmosphere to be in. And then there's other houses where it's almost like the energy is a fresh blank slate. Things seem to go completely differently despite the same people being present, but just in a different building. And there's a lot of theories, you know, is the house spirit an actual sentient being itself, or is it just an accumulation of all the energies that have ever resided in this house? So for example, if something really bad or negative happened in that house, maybe that residual negative energy is feeding into the house spirit and making it this really unpleasant, unwelcoming environment. So a lot of different theories on what a house spirit exactly is, but in my experience, actually connecting to your house spirit and working with it, it can improve that experience and make the atmosphere that you're living in so much more beneficial and positive and cozy. I have done a lot of work with my house spirit here in this home, and not once have I gotten locked out of this house. Not once have we had things just randomly break for no reason. The relationship with this house has been wonderful. And you can even bring in the spirit of your home in your home protection routines. So if you are a witch or just any sort of spiritualist that likes to cleanse your home often, put up some sort of protective barriers, etc., why not call your house spirit into that? It is just as motivated to keep this space protected and safe as you are motivated to keep it protected and safe. So now you have an ally on your side. You have this spiritual entity working for you rather than against you if you develop a really healthy, wonderful relationship with it. And there's so many stories I could share, but I will spare you all the details. But I can say from my own personal experience, it makes a massive difference when you start working with the spirit of your home. And we're going to talk about 15 different ways today that you can do that. The first thing that you're going to want to do if you have never connected to the spirit of your home, the first thing that you want to do is to introduce yourself. So I recommend finding the heart of your home, whether that's your living room, maybe you have a hearth. A lot of people like to work around this big, beautiful fireplace where a lot of conversations happen around it. find a place in your home where a lot of energy has accumulated. Maybe for you, it's not necessarily the living room, but it's more the kitchen. There's a lot of cooking and a lot of partying happening in the kitchen. Wherever it happens to be for you, it doesn't matter. Wherever all of that energy typically collects, that is where you're going to want to introduce yourself. So I recommend, if you don't quite know where that is, or maybe you've moved into a brand new home and you haven't really established any routines yet, go to your living room floor. Go sit on the floor, however you can comfortably sit, cross-legged or not. Close your eyes. Take a few deep breaths, allow yourself to go into a light trance, whatever you need to do for that, whether you do a body scan and you kind of go from the top of your head down to your feet, relaxing each point, or whether you just focus on taking 10 deep breaths and then starting back again at 1, just to kind of center yourself and to enter a light trance in order to do this type of spirit work. And then at that point, you are just going to openly speak to the house spirit. So what you want to do is introduce yourself. If you're in a deep enough meditation, you may be able to ask what its name is or any other identifying characteristics. You may have an image pop in your head or hear a whisper of something. Any sort of intuitive hits that you get in that moment may help you identify what this spirit is about, what it can help you with, what its personality is like. So stay really in tune with those intuitive hits that you get as you're sitting on the living room floor, introducing yourself and meditating. And you also want to make it known that you want to establish a relationship with this spirit. So you can do this in a more formal setting, or you can be completely informal with this whole situation and say something along the lines of, I wish to establish a relationship with you. How can I do that? You know, maybe the house will intuitively give you some wisdom as to how you can begin this relationship. If you like divination, you can also sit down with your tarot cards, a pendulum, dowsing rods, scrying mediums, whatever you happen to use for divination, to kind of have a back and forth conversation here. But really, you're just sitting on the floor, you're meditating, you're talking to the house spirit and introducing yourself. Then I recommend continuing your meditations with this house spirit on a regular basis, multiple times throughout the month. So try it at different points as well. You know, try it on different days of the week to see if the energy changes, or different times of the day to see if you get more activity in the morning versus the evening. Really, at this point, you're just experimenting and figuring out a way to communicate to your house spirit. You're going to want to perform divination. You're going to want to talk to it regularly. And this is the point where you start to develop your own personal gnosis about how the spirit likes to operate, the symbols it likes to communicate through, so you can navigate its personality a little bit better. And in addition to this, as you're working with your house spirit over the month, I would encourage you to talk to your spirit anytime that you're going to make changes on the house. So anytime you feel like painting a room a new color, anytime you want to do some construction, or you're swapping out a new appliance, or you're doing some sort of home improvement project, I recommend talking to the house spirit beforehand and letting it know what you plan to do. And you might find, this is through my own personal gnosis that I have discovered this, if you talk to your house spirit beforehand and let it know what you're about to do, the whole process of home improvement or whatever projects you're planning to do will go so much more smoothly than if you don't talk to the house spirit beforehand. I know that's a bold claim, okay? I'm talking about my own personal gnosis here. These are just things that I've experienced. You may disagree with me on that, and that's okay, but I do talk to my house spirit before I do anything on this house. Performing a naming ceremony can be something really, really fun. So I have a name for my house spirit. I am not going to share that, of course, because it's very private between me and my house spirit, but it became such a fun way to connect to the spirit and to really give it more of an identifiable personality. So think about the house's personality. Now that you've been meditating with this house for at least a month or so at various different points, hopefully getting some insights through divination or just through your meditations and the images that are coming through, you've been able to kind of figure out what personality this house is and try to find a name that really matches that. You know, you can even use ChatGPT or something online to help you, where you look up different names for manors, cottages, bungalows, etc. All these different cool house names that you can use, like Cedar Oak Manor or something like that. Let's say you have a house that's surrounded by a bunch of cedar and oak trees, so you decide to call it Cedar Oak Manor. Or maybe it's this tiny little whimsical cottage in the woods and you want to call it purple cottage because it's a quaint little purple house with a bunch of wind chimes hanging on the front door. Whatever it is, try to capture the personality of this house and give it a name. This is very, very chaos magic, but this is the name that you can also use to invoke your house spirit in whatever rituals you're doing for home protection, cleansing, banishing, as it pertains to your property at least, and so on and so forth. Having a name for this spirit is so helpful in those workings. And then do a naming ceremony. Sit down with your house spirit, bring in some fun elements. We're going to talk later on in this video about bringing in fun elements into your home, but you can bring in some items and trinkets that you feel like are appropriate for this ceremony, and then develop your own way of naming this house and declaring its name. Obviously, converse with your house spirit, see if your house spirit likes it or not. Maybe do some divination to get a yes or no answer if you're thinking about calling it something. But this is just a really fun way to be able to easily invoke this spirit during ritual. Make mundane tasks sacred. And what I mean by that is when you're cleaning your house, you're vacuuming, you're washing the windows, you're doing house projects to fix things that are broken, not only are you talking to the house spirit beforehand to let it know what you're doing if you're doing a house project, but you're making these mundane acts a sacred experience. So you're not just cleaning anymore, you're doing something magical and communing with the house spirit. So what I've done in the past and what I really like to do, I've talked about this in a video before. I think it was a video I did last Yule, I think, maybe, almost a year ago. Wow, time flies. But I have this bandana. I've consecrated this bandana with the intention of communicating to my house spirit when I wear it. So there's a specific bandana that I put in my hair when I'm about to go make a mundane task sacred, like cleaning my floors, like doing the dishes or whatever. And what I will do is I'll put that bandana on and then continue with my tasks, but I'll make it sacred by not only adding this consecrated piece, I'm being very mindful in that moment and perhaps talking to the house spirit. I'm potentially meditating before and afterwards, centering and grounding my energy, and I'm potentially weaving in some magical elements. So when you're cleaning your floors, what are you cleaning your floors with? You can make a wash that has some vinegar, water, and then some special herbs in it that correspond to cleansing, protection, banishment, whatever it is that you're looking for, and weave in some more metaphysical aspects. Or if you're smoke cleansing your home, obviously being really conscious of the type of smoke and the type of plants that you're working with. For example, I have found that my house really loves rosemary. That is pretty much all I burn in this house as far as smoke cleansing goes is rosemary. Only when I'm smoke cleansing though, because I definitely love my frankincense resin and a bunch of other resins when I'm doing magical work. That's completely separate. But when I'm cleaning and doing all of those mundane tasks, and then I want to also smoke cleanse my home, I'm almost always using rosemary. So experiment, try different things, make a mundane task a very ceremonial and sacred experience. My next suggestion is to add items and add energy to the space. I recently just made a video about intention bowls, so I will link that in the description box below if you want to check it out, but I love using intention bowls for this. I place an intention bowl in various rooms of my house to really embody the type of energy that I want in each room. For example, my living room, I want to encourage communication and I want it to be this really cozy, wonderful atmosphere to be in, versus the kitchen, I want it to be all about health because I'm very much into nutrition and I'm wanting to cook all the things that fuel our bodies and give us all the macro and micronutrients that we need. Maybe you have a basement that you've converted to a super fun place to be in with a foosball table, a pool table, an entertainment system or something, and you want it to be really exciting and fun and you want this uplifting, energizing energy for the room. Or maybe for a bedroom, you want to focus on dreaming and astral projection or sex magic, romance, etc. So think about the different rooms in your house and the type of energy that you want to embody and bring in things that are going to represent that. You don't just have to do that with an intention bowl. You can do that many, many other ways. So maybe there's tokens, items, plants, crystals, decoration pieces that really embody the intentions that you want. But it's not just about items, it's about the energy as well. So you can fill the space with love, laughter, celebrations, maybe in that basement that you've converted for fun, hosting throwing parties and have people raising the energy of the environment can absolutely feed the house spirit. So it's not just about little items and trinkets, although that is a wonderful way to cultivate the space that you want. It's also about filling the space with this energy and doing the things in those spaces that you really want to be magnified and fed back to the house spirit. In addition, when you are adding items to your place, ask the house spirit where it would like those things placed. So you may sit down and meditate with your house spirit and ask them, okay, I have a brand new plant, and should I place it at this window or this window? Ask your house spirit for advice and see if you get some sort of answer, either through divination or meditation, where you should place specific items. You might find that things perform better where the house spirit has also agreed that those items should go. The next thing that you can do is work with doorways. Doorways themselves are liminal spaces, and if you don't know what a liminal space is, it basically comes from the word limens, which means threshold. It is a magical space that is kind of between worlds. There are many, many different types of liminal spaces, doorways being one of them, but I find that you can do a lot of magical work with a doorway. So the first thing that you can do is actually create doorway charms to hang above. I've done a video on that as well, actually. I will link that down below. There was a tag that we all did with Olivia, the Witch of Wonderlust, where we talked about different doorway charms and different ways to create these little items that can hang above and embody a specific type of energy that we want for that particular space. Or maybe you're really interested in sigils or runes, and so you want to create some sort of symbol to paint or draw above the door frame to add protection, add happiness, peace, great conversation, whatever it happens to be. But I also really like the idea of simply walking through the doorway and viewing it as this liminal space, this threshold that you can cross, and visualizing yourself opening up energy pathways throughout the house. So this is a really fun, cool little astral trip, especially if you enjoy visualization. You can do this with a candle, incense, maybe a special key if there's a key that you want to designate or consecrate for this specific purpose, just to symbolize unlocking this energy flow and embodying what you wish. And as you walk through these doorways, visualizing your intentions for each room, ask the house spirit to assist you, connecting to the house spirit in the astral realm and using those doorways as a threshold to pull in certain energies that you want or push out and banish energies that you do not want. This is a very chaos magic thing, what I'm about to share, but let's say, for example, something unpleasant happens in the home. There's an argument or whatever it happens to be in that space, and you don't want that residual energy to sit there anymore. Visualize bringing that energy to the closest doorway. So you're going to go up to the doorway with either your candle, your incense, your key, whatever it is, whatever physical item you want to kind of trigger this situation to get yourself into the right state of mind. And as you pass through the threshold, as you pass through the doorway, you are going to visualize all of that negative energy going through the doorway and not necessarily into the next room, but the doorway acts as a portal. It is this threshold that you could just yeet. This is very chaos magic, you guys. Yeet that energy out of there. So go up to the doorway, visualize the negative energy going through it and being yeeted into the astral realm somewhere else, not in your home, and definitely not into the next room. So use your doorways. Use your doorways like portals to pull in energy or banish energy, whatever you need in that moment. Now at this point, hopefully you have started to establish some sort of relationship with your house spirit. Maybe perhaps you've got a name for your house. You have been meditating with it. You've been performing divination. You kind of have an idea of its personality. You've been placing different items and trinkets in different spaces. Maybe you've been doing some house projects with the house spirit. I recommend to do a home protection ritual. Home protection rituals are vast. I'm not going to cover protection magic in this video, obviously. Whether you decide to cleanse your house and then maybe put a bowl of salt in all four corners of your home, or if you create a home protection sigil that you want to put above the front door, maybe you do a door wash and you go to your front door and you wash it with a specific wash that you have created for home protection that has herbs in there that correspond. Maybe you just do a sweeping motion as you're sweeping negative energy out of the front door and then sweeping in the energy that you want. Whatever you decide to do for your home protection ritual doesn't really matter. Find something that resonates for you. There's 1,000 home protection videos up on YouTube for you to get inspiration from. But invoke your house spirit. Now that you've got a name, now that you've established a relationship, try a home protection ritual and now invoke them. Ask them for their guidance, ask them for their assistance, and see what happens. See if it is more potent and powerful bringing in your house spirit versus when maybe you used to do those protection rituals in the past and you weren't connected to the house spirit at all. So I encourage you to play around with that a little bit. As I've said many times, be your own mad scientist. Do a couple little fun experiments like that. Fill your home with scent. Now I know there's a lot of people that can be really sensitive to smells, so of course this doesn't have to be through highly fragranced candles unless you really want to. This can be through simmer pots on the stove, baking things in the oven. It can be through cinnamon pine cones or bringing in some cedar or fir branches inside and you can smell the cedar and fir. Scent plays such an important role in my magical practice. I cannot stress that enough. Not only is it a psychological trigger, every time you smell something, it tends to remind you of a certain situation when that scent was present, but also you might find your house spirit really enjoys certain smells over other smells. I actually have a really weird situation that used to come up when I tried to light candles with certain fragrances. The candles themselves would not stay lit, and I could not for the life of me figure out why. There was nothing wrong with these candles. I tried multiple candles, and somehow there were multiple instances where those candles would get snuffed out, or the candle just wouldn't burn right, despite me doing the exact same things as I always do with candles. And of course, I fully acknowledge that some candles are just poured wrong. Some candles, I mean, there are absolutely mundane explanations for why a candle does not burn properly, but then I would switch to a different fragrance and that candle would burn so clean. I would have no issues with it staying lit, no issues with it tunneling and burning out, even though I was, again, doing the exact same thing, using the exact same brand. And I have come to kind of find out that I really do think my house spirit enjoys certain smells over other smells. Also, you can kind of tell by the energy of the space. There's a little glimmer that happens. I don't know how else to articulate this, but when I have certain types of scent billowing throughout the house that I know that the house spirit enjoys, it looks different. There's just a little twinkle. There's a little glimmer out of the corner of the frame, and there's no other way for me to explain it other than it feels nice, it feels welcoming, versus other scents, as pleasant as they were, as much as I loved the smell of them, the room felt a little dull and lifeless. I know I'm probably going to get so many comments about candles and how they're poured and why some candles tunnel. Yes, I know all that. I know all that. Again, I'm not saying that there aren't mundane reasons why a candle will or will not burn or whether it will tunnel or whatever. I'm very aware of those reasons. I'm just saying within my own personal practice, I have written these things down. I have observed these patterns over a long period of time, and I do find it suspicious and a little odd that things keep happening in a certain way when statistically they probably shouldn't at this point. So do your own experimentations with scent and see what happens. Something that I recommend everybody should do is to create a home spirit altar. Usually I would recommend to do this in the heart of the home if you can, next to a hearth or in your living room or your kitchen or something like that. If you can't do that, if you live with roommates or maybe the rest of your family just isn't really witchy and you can't have an altar in those communal spaces, you can absolutely do this in your bedroom or do it in your closet if you need to be even more private. But create an altar for the house spirit that helps you connect to it a little bit deeper. So this is where you can go into the home's history a little bit. You can put some symbols for the house spirit that pertain to maybe when it was built or anything significant about the land that you live on, any battles that took place here, what spirits are occupying the land that this house has been built on, what is the material of the house that it has been made out of, really going into the history of this house and its creation and building an altar dedicated to this spirit. And this altar can be a place where you can continue to go back to communicate with the spirit. This is where you can also place offerings to the home, which we'll talk about offerings in a moment, but it just gives you this designated place to commune, perform divination, whatever it is that you need to do. Maybe this is where you decide to add in scent if there's certain resins you like to burn that the house spirit really seems to like as well. So create a little sacred space or a little altar dedicated just to the house. So let's talk about offerings a little bit more. Let's talk about when you want to give offerings to your house spirit to maybe improve the situation. Maybe this is a place where a lot of really tough things have happened in this home, and you want to start improving the relationship and the overall energy of this space that you now inhabit. Giving offerings to the home really helps strengthen that relationship, and then also just improves the energy overall. So I think when people think offerings, people immediately go to food and drink, right? You can absolutely set out an extra plate every now and then, maybe once a month on a designated day. You set out an extra plate of dinner just for the house spirit as you all are sitting down to eat your meal. Maybe you pour it a glass of wine, a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, and then put that on the altar. But I also really recommend taking nature walks. This is one of my favorite things to do. Go on a nature walk and connect to the season. Spring, summer, fall, winter, it does not matter. Look at the seasonal changes happening around you. See if there is anything fallen on the ground that is still in good shape that you can take home, and bring these little pieces of seasonal changes into your home as an offering and place it on the altar. So whether it's a pine cone, a fallen branch that looks really, really cool. One time I found a frozen dragonfly. I mean, obviously the dragonfly wasn't alive anymore, but I thought the symbolism of stumbling upon this frozen dragonfly was just so beautiful. So I picked it up and took it home, and that then became an offering. Maybe it's acorns, maybe it's witch's burrs. I think they're called witch's burrs. That's what we call them in this area of the United States, at least. It's like these little spiky things. Everybody calls them witch's burrs. Just some pieces of nature that you've picked up along your walk after connecting to the seasonal changes that you can then offer as additional energy to feed the spirit. And really just let your intuition guide you. Let your intuition guide you on if there's a particular stone that stands out to you as you're on your walk and you're like, wow, this is a really good stone. Pick it up, place it on the altar. If it feels good and it resonates, go for it. Dream communication is probably one of my favorite ways to work with spirits. I really, really love lighting a candle on my nightstand and then staring into the flame of the candle and letting my eyes slowly close as I drift off into a deeper trance. Obviously, if you're somebody that falls straight to sleep, please don't do that because you don't want to keep a candle lit as you're sleeping. That's dangerous. Obviously, I'm usually pretty good at staying in a trance-like state and not falling asleep, so that way I can wake up, blow out the candle when I'm done. But you don't always have to light a candle on your nightstand. You can simply ask the house spirit to communicate with you through dreams. So maybe if you're not the greatest at meditation or visualization, and that's just not something that comes easily for you, try dream work. I really encourage you to do dream work because it can be really cool. You can get a lot of symbols and a lot of good communication through dreams. You can even create a little sachet bag. So let's say you've created a sigil that represents the house spirit, or maybe you again have the house spirit's name. You can put that in a little pouch, add some crystals and herbs that correspond to communication, and then put that underneath your pillow, go to sleep, and see if you get any messages from the spirit. And I also recommend keeping a dream journal. This is just in general. Keep a dream journal. It doesn't matter what spirit you're working with, or maybe you're not working with spirits at all. You're only working with your own subconscious mind. Keep a dream journal on your nightstand. It's so important to watch those patterns unfold just to know yourself a little bit deeper. But record those interactions. That way you can look back on it and things can make a little bit more sense after things have potentially come to fruition and you've seen how things play out. Another suggestion is to have a full sound ritual. And this can be done so many different ways. So you can simply just play music throughout your house and dance, bringing in laughter and fun and play. Or you can make it a little bit more ceremonial as you're smoke cleansing your home. Maybe there's a particular binaural beat that you associate with cleansing that would really help you here. So you put on some binaural beats or a different type of meditative track that you want to play throughout your home as you cleanse your home. You can also use bells and chimes for this as well. So hanging up bells and chimes in different areas of your house, or just using a bell and ringing it a specific number of times as you go through the space to cleanse it. In a lot of different traditions, the number of times you ring the bell has extra spiritual significance, so you can look into something like that. Maybe you want to ring the bell 3 times in a space to clear it, or what have you. Look into numerology and see if something resonates there. Spend some time focusing on how this sound flows through the space and how it feels, whether you are using bells, chimes, drums, music. Sound can absolutely clear stagnant energy, and I think it's so underutilized. There is this funny thing that I've done, and I know other people have expressed this as well, for an effective banishing ritual, to grab a bunch of pots and pans and just bang them as you're going throughout your house. Get out, spirits, you know, whatever it is you're banishing in your space, just getting some pots and pans and banging them together. You know, if you've got a malicious entity in there or something, get out right now. That's a sound. Banging pots and pans together is a sound. So that is a form of a sound ritual. As ridiculous as it may seem, there are so many different ways that you can go about this. Coming down to the last couple suggestions that I have for you, I think that cooking is such a wonderful way to connect to the spirit of the home, not only because you're nourishing your body with macro and micronutrients, but you're also creating an aroma. There's scent playing into this, of course, as it billows throughout the house. But you can also prepare a meal with the intention of feeding the house spirit. So make the process of cooking magical, put on music, dance around if you want to, make it a very magical experience, but then also leave a plate out for the house spirit as an offering, as we mentioned previously. Bake bread, make a soup, or maybe you decide to make a very special dish that becomes a tradition. So maybe there's a meal that you like to make around this time of year every single time, or start developing traditions in general. I think traditions are so important when you're working with a house spirit because it just reinforces this consistency of what you're doing. You're consistently feeding a particular type of energy to the spirit, and tradition is often sacred to a lot of people too. So it adds this element of sacredness. So have a cooking ritual because it hits so many things that we've talked about today as far as giving an offering to the home, bringing in scent, you're bringing in energies into the space as you're dancing and making it this whole elaborate thing that you're doing. Even better if you can get your family to cook together, or maybe it's Yule time, you want to make sugar cookies together, so you have some kids get together or maybe some friends and you have a sugar cookie party where everybody decorates the sugar cookies however they want, and you're filling the home with laughter and excitement and fun things like that. The last tip that I want to share is to keep a gratitude jar. And I'm not just talking about being grateful for the good things in your life, although that's just helpful in general to be cognizant of, but to keep a gratitude journal specifically for the house itself. And this encourages you to reflect on how this house is actually protecting you, how it is providing this safe and wonderful space for you. So write some words of affirmation on a regular basis, whether it's one a day, weekly, monthly, whatever it happens to be, and then keep a jar with all of those words of affirmation for the house spirit, and also encourage your guests to do it as well. If you host a party and you have someone come over to your house, before they leave, have them write a little sentence of affirmation for your house spirit and put it in the gratitude jar. And then maybe at the end of every single year, you take all of those out, you read them out loud, and then you burn them in a Yule fire or something, you know, create a ceremony about burning these words of affirmations. But keep this jar all year round to really reinforce this gratitude for the space that is keeping you safe and protected, the space that feels like home. Now, this is a bonus tip. The very last tip that I have for you is to keep a house spirit journal. So document all interactions, all sensations, all signs. What patterns do you notice emerge as you work with this house spirit? How does the house spirit respond to your efforts throughout the month? What lessons does your spirit have to teach you about maintaining harmony in your space? So think about these journaling prompts and write about them on a regular basis. As you do your experiments, of course, it's important to record them so that way you can start pattern recognition and figuring out what your house likes, what it doesn't, and what you can do moving forward. Don't forget to go check out Sophie and Justin's videos if you want to see a more personal approach of someone working with their house spirit. Hopefully you can get lots of information from the three of our videos together. So thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in another video very soon.